Alright, Misfits 007 is now in the books. Another very exciting card with lots of good matchups from top to bottom. This card was really good, but it wasn't anything out of the ordinary for the Misfits boxing events. We still had the occasional sloppy fight between a couple of influencers that looked like they had never even tried on a pair of boxing gloves before. And in the main event of the prelims, yes, we did have two 400-pound men boxing, throwing punches, but I've got to say I was surprised by some of the fights in this card. Tennessee Thresh versus Paige Keiki. Usually in fights involving two female influencers, we typically get pretty sloppy boxing. We usually end up with two fighters without much defense, which results in a sloppy TKO somewhere in like the second round. But this was a lot different. This fight was an all-out war, back and forth pressure both ways. This was one of the more exciting fights to watch on the entire card, and it even ended with a pretty controversial decision. Me personally, I thought Tennessee Thresh should have won, but now all of a sudden the lighter female weight classes in Misfits boxing are starting to get pretty interesting. We had Virus coming out of Spain. It's a really smart move by Misfits to kind of push outwardly and expand into the other European markets. Virus with a huge KO, definitely making a name for himself and proving that a lot of these influencers from other countries can be just as good, if not better, than the ones that we're all already familiar with. And of course, the people's main event, Salt Papi versus Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor. From the start, I knew this was going to be a hard fight to call. Salt Papi being the fan favorite that he is, and Anthony Taylor being not just tough for a crossover boxer, but a legit tough guy, a guy who has proven to be hard for even legitimate professional boxers to get out of there. First round of this one was super exciting. Salt Papi with his ridiculously fast hand speed and very accurate punches. He's one of those guys where when you think about him as a fighter, looking at just his skills alone, he's leaps and bounds better than a lot of other guys in the scene. But Anthony Taylor, being as tough as he is, kept coming forward with big right hands. And one of the things that makes Anthony Taylor really hard to fight for a lot of boxers, and his last few fights, he's been the shorter fighter every time. So he's able to kind of duck underneath their punches and get into the clinch and kind of waste a lot of the time in the round. So if he's constantly coming forward, laying that right hand, going straight into the clinch, a lot of guys don't even have time to get punches off. And that's exactly what happened to Salt Papi. But I think that Salt Papi being able to hang in there, taking a lot of huge right hands, proving that he has a chin, and still displaying that super fast hand speed that we know and love, I think the future is still bright for him. And I think that he's still going to be a fan favorite, and him constantly going to try to find matchups to challenge himself even further is only going to make him even more of a fan favorite. And you gotta love seeing Anthony Taylor, just the pure emotion pouring out of him after this one. The guy's been through a lot, and to see him pick up a win on this stage while being a huge underdog against a fan favorite no less, you gotta feel good for the guy. And in the co-main event of the evening, Deji versus Swarms. Very interesting matchup considering how Deji has clearly been boxing for way longer, way more experience. But based off of what I've seen from Swarms, he seems to have a little bit of natural talent. He was a standout football player before he started his rap career, and that athleticism is definitely showing in his boxing. Super fast hands, snappy, quick jab. And when you take that into consideration on top of his wingspan, he was giving Deji a lot of problems in that first round. I even think he won the first round. But his inexperience started to show in every round afterwards. He had a lot of trouble finding his distance, finding his range, timing his shots, and overall, Deji was just the better man of the night. Constant forward pressure, forcing him up against the ropes, landing punches and bunches. Even after losing the first round, this ended up being a dominant victory for Deji. And apparently he's looking to call out Manny Pacquiao next, so we'll see what happens. And then the main event, KSI versus Joe Fournier. Joe Fournier was kind of the perfect opponent for KSI when you think about it. On paper, he's a legitimate professional boxer, 9-0, he's undefeated, even kinda sorta held a belt at a time. But the guy's 40 years old and he looked every bit of it. Just overall, Joe Fournier was a lot slower in terms of his movement and his punches. Struggled in the first round to find anything. And KSI, with that bouncing in and out karate style footwork, was able to dart in and catch Joe Fournier a couple times. Jabs to the head, jabs to the body, and in that second round landed a huge right hand that wobbled Joe Fournier. But unfortunately, while attempting to land a short right hand to put Joe out, he ended up hitting him with the elbow, causing this to be one of the more awkward victories in the crossover boxing scene and really in boxing in general. I mean, we know that he is a central component to Misfits boxing. It really is his event. So the broadcast team was very willing to just kind of brush by it and act like it didn't happen. KSI was also very vocal in denying that it happened, but you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Going in there in the middle of a fight, your adrenaline's going crazy, you hear the crowd shouting your name, all you know is that you want to knock this guy out. And once you see him laying on the ground, the only thing going through KSI's mind is probably job finished, job done. I almost want to say this was the best case scenario for Joe Fournier, given the circumstances. After the first round, I was pretty sure that he was not going to win this fight. fight. After the second round, when he got caught by that huge right overhand, I thought for sure Joe was going to end up getting knocked out. So of all the ways that he could have gotten knocked out, an illegal elbow, well, I'm sure it did not feel good. At least now he has an ounce of plausible deniability, saying that he didn't really get beat, especially since this is probably going to end up being his last boxing match. So it's next. Immediately following this, Tommy Fury entered the ring to have a face-off with KSI in a fight that KSI clearly really wants, but also a fight that he clearly shouldn't want. I'm going to get into this in another video, assuming the fight actually does get scheduled, but I certainly applaud KSI's willingness to go up in difficulty, but I think Tommy Fury is just a step too far. I think a better fight would be Tommy Fury versus Idris Virgo. Both of these guys being legit pro boxers who don't want to risk having a loss in their record. I doubt that they would fight each other, but we already saw them get into it in the crowd, and I think that that would be a major fight for both of them, bringing in that professional boxing audience, that crossover boxing audience, and then both of these guys being former Love Island stars. I'm sure there's no shortage of people that would line up to watch this fight. But overall, this was a great night of fights. I mean, there were some good fights, some bad fights. Still, there's a lot of very great moments. Seeing Deji get a second win, seeing Anthony Taylor prove the doubters wrong, and then there were a couple of weird moments, like KSI winning by an illegal elbow. But overall, I gotta say this was another successful night for Misfits Boxing. And as usual, I'm excited to see what happens next. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of this fight? What do you guys think they should do about that illegal elbow? Should the commission look at that and maybe make that a no contest? And who do you want to see KSI fight next? Tommy Fury or somebody else? And how do you think that Tommy Fury fight will go? Thanks for watching.